So, hi everyone. I'm Andjelka Djukic, and I work, I would say, at an intersection of software as a sales, AI products, education, marketing, and also probably, I would say, a lot of training. So, what that means is that I spend a lot of time in this area of business, and I spend a lot of time in two very different rooms, two very different scenarios, because I'm at that intersection. In one room, product teams are, super excited because they released a new tool, they created something, everything went well, and the feature works. In the other room, on the other hand, customers are not that satisfied and they're asking, okay, but how do we actually use this tool? They are not always understanding how to use it. And this is where the biggest issue comes. So they are always asking how can we use this tool without creating more work, more risk, more confusion, and that gap that we have is what I want to talk about today. So I want to say, and this is the topic that I'm talking about today, that AI apps don't fail because of tech. They fail because people don't know how to use it. They don't adapt them. So we always hear that AI applications fail. They fail because the model wasn't, strong enough, that the tool had issues, that data wasn't clean. That's the one I hear pretty often. And they also complain, people who complain that integration wasn't complete, or that there were, for example, some issues with the prompts, with prompts that were set up, that prompts weren't good enough. And all of that, all of these things can happen, of course, but unfortunately, in many cases, AI tool actually work and the programmers, developers actually do their job. But AI products, they don't fail because of the technology. They fail because they weren't people weren't explained on how to use that technology. So they fail because human systems around the technology weren't working, because they are from another time, they are often messy and complicated, and then human system that now adapts this technology isn't redesigned, and it has to be redesigned. So this is the main issue. People are given access, but people are not given clarity on how to use these tools. So people are they are told to use AI, but not when, how, and then they never trust it. So they don't know when to actually trust it, when to question it, who remains responsible after AI is used, and that all creates a lot of confusion and a lot of uncomfortable feeling when people now need to start using a new tool. So my central argument today is simple. Building the AI app is only part of the product. The other part that people often forget about is actually building the system around it. We need to build conditions in which now people will actually use the tool. A real person can actually understand how to use it and make it useful for their work, for themselves. They need to understand it and trust it. And then we can actually move forward and have some success with it. So basically, what also I wanted to tell and talk about, this is not a talk against AI. It's basically a talk about how we make AI genuinely useful. And that's something that I wanted to bring up and that I think is really relevant today. So, why do you think why do I think I have any credibility to talk about this? I also wanted to introduce myself a bit. So I told you in which areas I work at. So my personal experience, I currently work as head of sales at Eclincher. It's a marketing platform that actually utilizes AI a lot. Um, and I worked a lot in ed tech. I came to this conclusion before generative AI became the headline of every conference, every article that you now can see online. I saw the same pattern in edtech, and I worked with a lot of edtech platforms. I've seen the same pattern in training and learning and development. I've seen it also in software as a sales because you have a lot of AI automation there, corporate training, and this is super important because it's used a lot in corporate training, but not, I would say, not in the right way. For example, if we go back to edtech, personalized learning, it looks magical or when you present it. It looks great. You can now do anything. You can show a learner uh, I would say a personalized learning journey. You can show them, receiving the right content at the right time, at the right pace, and this is something that we are always promising, and it's actually possible. There are tools that do this right. You know, After that demo is clean, you did the presentation, the learner is motivated, everything is great. Content is perfectly tagged. And a learning objective is clear. Everything is in a right place. But then when we enter a real organization or a real school or institution, we come to see a lot of problems. So the content library, for example, has been built by different people. Same topic has 5 names. Some courses are built for different levels of learners. Some courses have clear outcomes. The other ones simply don't have clear outcomes. They are just simply, um, bunch of lessons. People who are creating learning journeys or course managers have not agreed on what employees should do differently after they implemented this new AI tool and this new training system. Instructors are worried about, losing their credibility. And then in the end, learners have no idea whether to, follow the recommendation. The algorithm may be doing exactly what it was told to do. So it's not the issue with the tool, it's doing what it was designed to do. But on the other hand, in practice, people are not using it well, and it doesn't, in the end, produce the results that we expect it to. Just we need to rebuild the system and have a really detailed onboarding. This is something that I constantly see in AI products. So prior to that, so the tool is visible, system is invisible, and we notice the interface, we notice the model. This is something that we have contact with. We notice the automation as well. We don't immediately see the content governance, and this is actually the main thing that's behind it. We don't see role definitions, which is also super relevant. We don't see incentives, approvals. We don't see feedback loops, and this is super relevant, and this is what sometimes makes this noise, and it makes some issues with us using the platform. So what is really relevant is human support that's holding this experience together. So in my current work, customers are often impressed by the demo. They like it, they're excited about it, they like what AI can generate in seconds, and they just automatically think, oh, it will just solve all of our issues. We just release AI to the people and that's it. But the most important questions come immediately after this wow moment, we had during the demo and stuff like that. So these questions are actually the ones that are popping up often, and it's like, which information is the source of the truth? Can the AI answer in our brand's voice, or can AI answer in the institution's voice? What happens, with technical questions? Who is answering the technical questions in the institution? And a lot of people who are in charge of this don't know that they are in charge of it, and it's always a bit chaotic, and the easiest thing is to blame the tool. So also questions that come up is, what happens across multiple languages? This is also an issue that came up a lot of times. So these are not side questions, they are actually the product in practice. So this is something that we need to pay attention when building a product. We need to have these questions in mind, because great tools, even though they work in the back end, these great tools fail when the systems around them are not that proof ready. So this is something that we need to think about when we are also building the tools. I also want to be precise about about today's topic and about this phrase. I said, human systems problem. I'm always mentioning the human systems problem. I'm not saying that us as humans are the problem, of course. This is not the issue. So people are often described as resistant, afraid, or slow in certain situations, but I don't think this is the issue. I think the issue is that people are just not explained well on how to use something. From there, we have this unwillingness to change. So this framing of, oh, people are afraid to use it and then they are not using it, this is just convenient because it allows us to blame the user. Okay, these are our clients. When a user does not adapt a tool, I want us to ask a better question, and actually I would say an important question. How was that person asked to use it? Did the AI actually enter a clear workflow, which is often the case that it wasn't really clear, or it just became one more tab? Were their expectation realistic? This is also really relevant, and I'm telling this as a salesperson. You still, even when you sell, you need to set expectations to be realistic. Did anyone explain the limits of the tool? Also, could the user correct the system? This is also super relevant. Did using the system create professional risk? This is super relevant, especially when you are creating tools that are going to be used by big institutions, government institutions, big companies, and so on and so on. I mean, every client is equally relevant, but still, risk is not the same. So these like handoffs that we are having, this is where I see products lose people. So the first handoff is the model to workflow handoff. This is the first one. And the model as it is, it produces something useful, and this is why you created the product. But nobody, and a lot of people completely forget about this, nobody has designed what happens next. Sometimes they do, but I often see that platforms fail to do that. The second is demo to decision friction. This is super relevant also, especially when you have trials and trial periods. So controlled demo is, of course, impressive. We all build it to be impressive. If you have also a good sales team, they will make it look impressive. But the real work actually contains sometimes incomplete data, exceptions, politics, which is also relevant, deadlines, and also accountability. And you always need to have in mind to set realistic expectations when explaining your product, just to keep the client accountable as well. And the third and final one is instruction to trust gap. We can teach people which button to press. What we fail to teach them is how to judge the result. And when those handoffs happen, and when those handoffs are ignored, there is like low adoption, and low adoption is not irrational. You can expect it. So it's often, I would say, a sensible response to an unclear system. So we always have to ask those questions when doing onboarding. We need to ask about expectations and setting those expectations in like a realistic scope. And the why is this also relevant is because we have a lot of colliding between the speed of technology development and the human system development. We have technology and organizations that move at different speeds, and this is commonly known. A model can be updated in weeks. Product teams can ship a new feature pretty fast, pretty quickly, especially now with AI. They can ship a new automation as well, or agent. We can do a rapid demo of a new feature or a new tool and immediately imagine, oh, okay, people will just start using it because it's useful and that's it. We are imagining it in the future. All great. But human systems change so slowly. Still, we are in another century with human systems. And this is something that is, evolving naturally. We cannot push them too hard. Role clarity requires conversations. This just takes time, and we need to adapt to it. Trust, which is really really relevant, it's built through repeated experience, not just, oh, I seen it and I trust it. No, sometimes the people in their systems get stuck in the way that they used to work without AI, and now they need to rebuild it completely, and they forget to rebuild. And this is where you need to push them. I mean, I see this collision very, very clearly in software as a sales. So a product team releases an AI assisted reply feature, for example, and there were a couple of really public scandals on this. I will tell you a bit about it later. So an instant reply feature is released. Technically, the feature may be ready, but customer may have several brands, client approval requirements. They can have also legal restrictions, which is also sometimes an issue. They can work in multiple countries with different regulations. They can have different tones of voice, even though we have like a chatbot that replies and does the automation. And one team wants full automation. They just want just to use AI and that's it. They don't have time. Another team wants every answer to be reviewed. They want full control over it. They don't trust the AI bot. And the third is willing to automate only routine questions. And the product has one release date, and that's it. But organization has many requirements, and they also have many adoption timelines. So this is where we also have a collision. That's why this like feature is live that we use so often, or feature is operational. Uh, they are not the same statement. The feature is live is good, but feature is operational is a completely different thing. So we want to help people to catch up, but we are sometimes not managing to do that. It actually sometimes has the contra effect. The faster the capability changes, the more important role clarity, learning, system changes, and precise instructions, governance become. So this is when we talk about different speeds. This is what I mean. Uh, if we don't pay attention to that, users are just always going to be onboarded to, you know, to a moving target, basically. They will not be onboarded to actually use the tool and become more efficient, which is our primary goal with every single one of these tools. We want to make something useful in the end, and we also want to be used. When we talk about the adoption, I went to different researches. So the numbers show this large gap and how large this gap has become. So there's a McKinsey report, and in the end, I will also share all the references that I had. That they reported that 92% of complaints plan to increase AI investment over the following 3 years, while only 1% actually 1% of leaders they describe their AI deployment as successful or mature, I would say. So what does that mean actually? uh, it means when we say AI deployment is mature, it means that it's like integrated into workflows successfully, that they are actually producing some meaningful outcomes out of it. Only 1%. This is crazy. So this is a really, really low percent for what we are actually promising to the world. So this difference is actually the adoption paradox. So we have an enormous investment and enthusiasm, of course, but we have very little operational maturity. So this is also where a lot of problems with clients come from. So it's easy, it's easy to confuse buying access with building capability. An organization can buy, of course, licenses for thousands and thousands of users, and still they can have no shared understanding of what and how they're using it and how this boosts up their productivity. Sometimes also what I saw, people just silently use public tools outside of the approved system because those tools feel easier because nobody explained them how to use an internal tool, and I don't know, they have like an internal AI chatbot, they still go to ChatGPT or whatever. The research also makes an important point. The biggest barrier we actually see is not necessarily employees who are refusing to use AI. It's not people's fault. That's the main point. Leadership, management, and the operating model, they matter enormously. So leadership who is creating the system. When leaders or higher management say, okay, we gave everyone the access, we gave everyone the tool, why aren't they using it? They sometimes just go and say, oh, it's the tool's fault. No. The real answer is access was just the beginning of the work. It wasn't enough. Um, it's not the end. They need to be taught on how to use the tool. Capability means that people know where AI actually adds value, not just, okay, let's stick AI label to it. The people need to recognize a weak output as well. They need to have a critical understanding of it. They need to understand the consequence of an error. It's not just be lazy with AI. Oh, I will just prompt it and put it as it is. They also need to have permission to escalate, which is also super relevant. So this means that the organization rewards the new behavior. That organization needs to reward people who are actually interested in learning how to use the new tool, instead of just asking people to adopt AI on top of an unchanged system. Um, and what we need to do from our end is actually to encourage the organizations and the management when doing the onboarding to just reshape the system. We also need to talk a bit about platform thinking versus system thinking. So we have different views. There is a difference between how we think when we look at things from the view of the tool, and how we think when we actually use it in the practice. So, for example, platform thinking says, okay, just launch it. We need to launch it. We need to send one training invitation, and we need to track logins, which is also part of the things that people do. We need to track completion. And this is something that I actually experienced with a couple of platforms I worked with. And these were big mistakes. I've seen this pattern repeatedly. We had like onboarding scheduled and training scheduled, and someone demonstrates every feature. So they explain, okay, this does this does that. The session is even recorded. We have a follow up. Do you guys have some questions? The regular thing, the thing that we all do. And even, I don't know, we had emails, okay, with the resources. And then we have, we give them even the like library with all the question Q&As, and then the usage is measured. And when it's low, the conclusion is that, okay, people need more training. Okay. But often what happens, they just don't need more feature training. And this is the mistake, mistake that some platforms do and some teams do. They're like, okay, let's do more training. And they, again, show how the features work. They need work design. They need to use it in practice. So, and this is where we come to the system thinking. So when we talk about system thinking, it begins with the job to be done, the practice. What specific pain are we reducing? This is the main question that we need to ask. What decisions are we improving? Then we redesign the workflow with the help of the tool. Where does exactly AI enter is the question that we need to ask. And when you are explaining your tool to someone, this is the question that you need to ask them. Does AI, I don't know, retrieve information, draft, classify, summarize? Does it recommend? Does it act on its own? What do you want? What does it need to do? And we also need to think, okay, what must happen before and after? So what are the steps that need to happen? Then what we need to do, then we build the feedback loops. So can users flag a bad response? Super relevant to us. Super relevant to us. Does that feedback reach a person who can change something? Does the feedback maybe reaches the person who can change the prompts, who can change data, permissions, product behavior? And these are the things that we need to think about in advance. Are we also learning from expectations, which is something that we sometimes need to do, or we are just counting usage? And we, of course, need to learn. We need to learn how people are using it. In the end, what needs to be done is, and I mentioned this already, we need to reward the new behavior. This, of course, institutions and clients need to also reward new behavior. This matters more than it sounds. So imagine asking customer support team to use AI carefully. Okay, please verify every answer, document errors, pay attention, improve the knowledge base. This is something that customer support always has to do. Imagine asking that while measuring them only on how many tickets they close. So this is not the only relevant thing. We need to reward them also asking questions. The system is rewarding speed and requesting judgment. And speed will always win when we are looking at the data. But the same is true also in development. So, for example, if a team is rewarded only for, you know, output volume, which is sometimes the case with like bigger systems and bigger companies, AI generated code may increase volume while creating review burden. Adoption metrics just have to align with the quality. What I also see pretty often is trial periods or pilots that get stuck. And this is often visible in those situations, especially if it's like, again, with a bit of bigger system. So the pilot is, often treated as a stage performance. Choose like a clean use case, prepare the data, and, show the best output. But actually, the purpose of pilots shouldn't be to just impress people with flashy things, and it shouldn't be to prove that AI can do something under ideal circumstances. We already know that it can. We built it. We know that AI can produce impressive outputs, but what we need to do during the pilot is actually put it into practice. The pilot should actually reveal what the organization must learn before scaling. And they often use AI, and this is the trend. The AI is often used for scaling and more productivity and similar things. So before that, we need to show what they need to do. I recently saw this in a practical way. So clients tested an AI agent in a like real customer communication context. And sometimes people have a good sense of how to use it, but sometimes they don't. So after about a week, the feedback was nuanced, and the system could handle like simpler situations and simpler questions. But what also happened, highly technical questions and comments in multiple different languages, it exposed some weaknesses. And actually, the problem wasn't the tool, because tool was designed to do all of that, but unfortunately, the person wasn't trained on how to use it. It would have been easy to conclude, okay, AI is not good enough. The tool is not doing its work, and that's it. But that conclusion is just wrong. The point was that the prompt wasn't good enough, and the documents that needed to train AI to respond weren't have been imported. So that was the real issue. So you need to know how to build up the knowledge base and teach people how to build up the knowledge base. What we need to know, which technical documentation needs to be included. Was it written? Was that technical documentation written for customers or internal experts? That's also super relevant, because of the language that AI will use, when AI agent will use when talking with end clients and customers. Were translated sources equally complete? Again, super relevant when we are talking about multiple languages. What should the agent do when confidence is low? Well, you need to train it. It needs to have a prompt. Should the agent ask a clarifying question, or should it create a ticket if you're, for example, integrated with CRM? Or should the AI agent route the conversation to a specialist, schedule a meeting, or something like that? Who reviews incorrect answers? Again, relevant question, or does anyone review them? How quickly does that correction improve? These are all the questions that need to be asked prior to the usage in practice. And they often don't happen before the people start using it. All of that is actually useful pilot data. This is why we need to use the pilot to get these information. So the AI didn't only produce answers, it exposed the gaps in the operating system. It exposed mistakes that operating system has around those answers. So that it exposed that maybe documentation wasn't complete, or that is it even existent. This is what I mean when I say pilot must be a learning system, not a stage. So it's a learning system to the company as well, to the tool as well. We need to measure exceptions. So we need to record where users override the AI. This is the most relevant thing that we need to measure. We also need to track which tasks require escalation. We cannot just say, oh, AI will magically just solve all of your problems. It's just not true. We need to be realistic. We also need to ask whether the tool fits the actual workflow, not just push it onto it. We don't need to ask whether people liked the demo. That's the least relevant situation here. The organizations that cross the, I would say, so-called Gen AI divide, they're not just choosing a better model when they are not pleased. They are learning faster about intention, context, usage, behavior, workflows. So anytime that you actually have a competitor that's winning, it doesn't have to be the tool. It can just be the onboarding and the dedication that they give to the client. This is what I was aiming towards, the value being outside of the model itself. So BCG expresses this with like 10 to 20 to 70 approach. So roughly 10% of the effort is spent on the algorithms, 20% is spent on technology and data, and 70%, which is a huge percent, is actually spent on the people and the processes. And this is what we need to have in mind. The percentages are not like universal. It's not a formula, but this is something that they have in mind when creating new tools, and what they suggest having in mind when creating new tools. The point is where transformation effort is usually underestimated. It's like in AI customer service use case, and the model may be only one that is like just one part of the work. Data and technology include integrations, of course, and this is something that we have in mind all the time, but also permissions, roles, conversations history, all of these things that are super relevant to us, and also the knowledge base that we need to pay attention to. So the main thing is that we need to have like the people and the process layer, and also we need to include all the brand rules, ownership, quality review, staffing, escalation, training, all of the things that happen when the answer affects money, safety, reputation, or even customer relationship. And this is something that we have to have in mind. So the model is the most visible part. So everyone thinks, okay, this is the only thing that we need to pay attention to, and it receives the most attention. But actually, value is behind it. Value is I say the usefulness, but value is actually created when the output changes a real process to better. The fast answer that creates three new checks uh, may have negative value, unfortunately. And even a lot of effort was put into it and was behind it. An agent that saves 10 minutes, but on the other hand, increases uncertainty, may, not feel like support at all, or, additional value at all. The right question is not only, okay, how capable is the model? It's actually what changed in the work. What changed also, did that change improve the outcome? I want to talk a bit about accountability. And this is something that you have to keep in mind when you're presenting your product. Okay, a lot of developers are not doing that, but if you have your own personal startups or products that you're working on, you need to be aware of it. You, of course, need to have it, but you have to keep your clients accountable as well in a right way. So, for example, there is a really well-known situation with Air Canada chatbot case. It was like 2 years ago. And for example, a customer used the airline's chatbot to ask about refund, I think, and the chatbot gave incorrect information as a response. It was a really, really big scandal at that point. For example, I think the chatbot said that discount can be requested after travel, and the customer in the end relied on what the chatbot said. And of course, the airline later refused the request and refused the refund. And then the customer was super unhappy about it. Everything went to the press. Pretty big scandal. In the dispute, Air Canada argued, in effect, that it's not their fault. That's the chatbot's fault. And the chatbot was separate from the company, it was outsourced. The tribunal rejected that argument, of course, because they are the ones that were using it. The chatbot was part of Air Canada's website. They were purposefully putting it there, and in the end, the company remained responsible because it was. The company was also responsible for the information it provided. So that was a really big problem, and it's just an example. A lot of these things happen all the time. This particular case matters because it turns an abstract governance discussion into a real life situation and something very, very concrete. So, for example, AI can automate the interface. It can, do the automatic responses. It cannot absorb accountability. AI is not accountable on its own. People are accountable. So for every AI application, especially ones that communicate with end customers and clients, for four things, I would say, must be explicit. And this is what you have to have in mind when creating it and when you talk about AI chatbots, for example. So the source of the truth, which policies, documents, databases, systems are AI's responsibility, which systems AI is allowed to use. How do we know they are current and they are correct. All of these things are super relevant. Second thing that we need to pay attention to is the escalation part. What types of questions or confidence we need to, have a human to review or reply to. So, which things require a human professional? What happens with legal, financial, medical, safety related, uh, emotionally sensitive situations? AI shouldn't be in charge of it. It can be prompted to give a regular answer and then, uh, suggests to talk with a professional. Third, quality review. Who samples outputs, who investigates failures, who looks for patterns rather than, isolated cases. This is something that we also need to ask ourselves when we are implementing this kind of tool. And fourth, of course, human ownership. Super relevant. So not like a vague statement that, oh, you know, a human is in the loop. We have a person in the loop and that's it. But we need to have a named role with authority to intervene. And what I would say most importantly, a role of a person that has responsibility for the outcome. Just if we say AI makes mistakes, AI hallucinate, it doesn't replace a responsible operating model. The organization still has to own experience, and it needs to first of all train the model in a right way. Secondly, still have some ownership and put people that are in charge of specific situations there. We need to put AI in a clear workflow, and we need to design the loop. The one reason AI assistants can work well in development is that, a mature developer workflows already contain super useful guardrails. So this is something that we have to be aware of. Mm, if I think about the examples, GitHub Copilot, it's a good and simple example. So the user knows the task, and okay, let's say the task is, help me write or complete or explain, um, or refactor code, and then the AI output um, isn't just automatically the final product. It's just helping. Developer reviews it, edits it. Developer also runs tests, checks if there are some mistakes, dependencies, and in the end, the developer submits the code through version control, which is all super relevant for the final product. So we have a pretty clear workflow that makes, I would say, three things visible. So first thing is the clear task. So here we have, okay, the developer knows which job the AI needs to do and which job AI supports. So second is, I would say, human judgment, and it always remains relevant. AI needs to be treated as an intern, as an assistant, and not as something that does the work for you. The person doesn't outsource responsibility merely because the suggestion that appeared inside of the editor happened. The human judgment has to be there, and it needs to be the most relevant thing there. So the third is the feedback loop. So we, of course, need to do tests. We need to review comments, review the feedback, production behavior, or super relevant, and incident data. So all of these are really important for us just to see what improved and what broke. And we, of course, need to pay attention to this. So this pattern can be, I would say, translated to many different AI apps in social customer care, which is also important use case, I would say. The AI can classify a message and draft a response. And we need to be aware that it can do that. And then a person can review some high risk categories. They can actually improve the knowledge base that also AI uses later on. This is something that we need to implement more often. If we use it just in sales, I would say AI can summarize a call and suggest a follow-up call or follow-up actions. But the account executive or account manager needs to verify commitments before doing anything and needs to make conscious decisions on what's the best thing to do. The goal is not to just insert AI everywhere, it is to give AI a defined role and to then explain that role to your customer and then explain their own new role inside this workflow where also judgment and feedback already have a home. What I would also like to talk about is, I would say, the builder's mandate or engineering trust, of course. So this actually creates a specific mandate for developers and tool builders. And I'm talking to you guys mostly. I don't know if you've seen Dora's research. It found that 75% respondents reported positive productivity, but unfortunately, only 39% showed like little to actually no trust in AI generated code despite usage. So we had higher usage, but really still like pretty relevant trust issues. And 39 I said only because I still think a lot of people find it useful, but still 39% is not the percent that we're aiming towards. And that was, pretty discouraging actually for the developers. I think Stack Overflow developer survey found even wider trust gap. So with that one, it was like 46% of developers that distrusted the accuracy of AI outputs. So even developers had a big issue with AI itself. Only and I have this data in the end. I will share it. Only 3% reported high trust. This is a super low number. So this combination, high use or perceived productivity, but on the other hand, low trust, this is not something that anyone wants. What also happens, they compensate with checking, which is okay, good, with parallel work, with informal rules, with caution. And this happens all the time. Some of that verification is healthy, of course. Some checking is always, of course, good, but too much of it destroys the value of the tool. If we need to use and do everything double, it's just not, then tool is not doing what it promised. So onboarding needs to have and teach judgment, not just features. We need to show users example of good and bad practice, good and bad outputs. We need to explain common failure models, so we need to explain even bad things. We need to teach them when context is missing. We need to, we cannot just say and tell them all of their problems will go away. We need to show them when the model is likely to sound more certain than it should, when and how to escalate, uh, where they need to pay more attention, where and how to prompt the model. And there we can build actually the trust and the usefulness of the tool. Trust must also be engineered into the product. So we need to give users different, citations of source. We need to have like source visibility wherever is possible, and we need to show what data was used. We need to provide them with all of those information. We need to provide audit trails. We need to also make human override easy, and so it's like user friendly. And we need to preserve version history. All of these things are super relevant, and I found if you're missing any of these, you will have a lot of issues later on with your clients. So we need to communicate uncertainty honestly. We cannot hide consequential automation because behind a magical interface. So I know it sometimes sounds that then we are doing ourselves this service when we are selling the product, but this is just a better way to approach the client. We need to design also for the cautious expert, not only for the enthusiastic beginner. Uh, we need, to have experienced users also pleased. They often distrust AI precisely because they can recognize those like subtle errors, and they pay attention to them. So their skepticism is valuable product feedback, and this is something that we need to pay attention to. I would often say that you need to have like an adoption map and also present it to your clients. And let's just bring everything together in this 5-step adoption. So let's use AI customer response assistant as an example, just to make it a bit more understandable. This same app, of course, applies to coding assistance, to internal knowledge, to all of the other use cases that you can think of. Also to, I would say, learning platform, fintech, analytics agents, workflow agents, and so on and so on. All of the automation and AI agents can have the similar adoption. So step one, we need to start with pain, and this is often taught in sales, but we need to have this in mind when creating a product as well. We don't start with like where can we add AI. We need to start with where is work currently breaking down. So this is the main question we should be asking. So we need to define the real friction and then establish the, I would say, baseline. So after that, what we need to define and map is the workflow entry. So this is something that's super relevant, and we need to ask our future client, where does AI exactly enter? Perhaps it first classifies incoming messages, let's say like that, or it retrieves relevant policy and drafts a reply, That's also a possibility. So we need to see where AI has its role. We need to give AI its role, and we need to map it. We need to see the entire how entire workflow works. So we need to be specific here. Okay, AI will help customer with what? AI will help customer service, but that's not specific enough. It's not a workflow. We need to have the know the entire system and how it operates and where exactly AI actually has where it's active, and that's it. So after that, we come to the step three with the definition of roles. What does AI do? So here we had where does it come in, and understanding the workflow, and now what does the AI exactly do? And then later on, other roles. Who does what? What does the manager do? What does the regular support agent do? Who maintains the knowledge base? Who handles security and access? So every role needs to be defined, so AI actually can be effective. Who is accountable when a policy changes? Human ownership is super relevant, and we need to have boundaries there. So these boundaries should be visible before the first real user comes to play, starts using it with the new tool. So before this interaction, we need to have those boundaries and those roles defined. Step four, train judgment. Don't only demonstrate the happy demo and the happy path. You need to give users, the ones who are actually using it, realistic edge cases and warn them about it. They will appreciate it every time. We need to show an answer that's fluent but wrong. We need to show a question with a missing context, show a high risk message. I had a situation with a marketing platform where we had community management automation, and there was a situation where, okay, AI has a good knowledge base, everything is good, but for example, the comment is completely out of context, like this was fire. The event was fire, and AI had no idea what to do with it. So we need to make these situations also known, that these can happen, and then pay attention to them and see what can be done in these situations. And in the end, what's also something that we cannot forget about is to measure value. So not only number of logins, prompts, generated answers, we need to measure the value, actual value of the outcome. We need to also measure the cost of achieving this outcome. Did the response time improve? Did correction rates rise or fall? Did customer satisfaction change? Was there a price for any of it? We don't want only like to increase speed, we need to, or number of answers, we need to increase it all. We need to pay attention to every single thing. How often did employees override the AI? Also super relevant. Did they have like double work to do? Did the tool reduce cognitive load or simply move the work into checking? Are users becoming more confident and capable over time? Again, super relevant. And that's why you need to talk with your clients a lot. Communication is key. I know it is something that everyone says, but it is. There is one more principle connecting all 5 steps. Keep the feedback loop close to the work. So the person who finds the failure, they should have a simple way to report it. The team then can fix the failure. And this team that fixes the failure, they should receive enough context to act. Again, communication. So what's super important for us is that the organization should be able to distinguish like a model limitation from a data problem. Also, they need to distinguish like it from a policy contradiction or a permissions issue. All of these things actually happen. It's not only the tool's fault, and they need to be aware of it. Most of the time, it's badly designed workflow from my experience. But yeah, these things can actually change. And this is how the pilot during the adoption um, actually becomes a useful thing for the product, and how this product then uh, becomes an operating capability, which is something that we are aiming towards. So I hope that this all actually made sense. And with this, I would actually come to the closing argument. And I would just say to you guys to slow down, to slow down when creating the tool, and to have, I know everything is super fast right now, and you have the need to just create, but we need to pay attention to the details. Every AI app teaches people something about their own role, and we need to remind people of this as well when talking about AI tools. So it teaches them whether they are still, expected to think, uh, whether they are allowed to question the system or to question the output, and they should be. It also teaches them whether the organization will support them when the tool is maybe uh, wrong, and it happens, of course. And it also teaches them whether this efficiency matters more than judgment. And the answer is in the combination of two. So adoption is not just a thing that we have to go through and that's it. It's not just a final stage after development. Adoption is an ongoing thing. It's shaped by the product, it's shaped by the client, and by the decisions that are made from beginning. So it's shaped, I would say, by where the AI enters, what it can see, what it can access, what it can do, how it communicates, and also how people actually correct it when it's not communicating with certainty. So the best AI systems will not be the ones that, asks humans to adapt to it. It These systems will be actually best when they adapt to the existing system, or when the system and AI actually change together, which is the most common use case that you will find. So these systems need to be, AI systems need to be designed around work people genuinely need to do, with clear roles, meaningful control, and feedback that actually makes the tool useful. So I would like to thank you for listening, and please feel free to send me any questions you have. Also, if you need references to the data and the research that some research that I mentioned. So yeah, we can stay in touch. Thank you again, and bye.